What actually controversial opinion do you have? Serious. Babies should be readily screened for genetic defects and non-viable fetuses should be flushed out. A concrete example would be those syndromes where people are chair-bound forever, wearing diapers, have mental retardation, etc. Their parents are going to die at some point and they will be a burden on either the family or just thrown into an institution. It's just unfair for everyone involved. It's not because our modern medicine can maintain people alive that it should. It sounds horrible. I am so sorry. After living in a few Muslim countries, I don't believe that moderate Islam actually exists, only diluted and reformed Islam. That is, Islam that becomes changed after exposure to moderate views from cultures outside of Islam. I've heard on Reddit that people claim that extremist Muslims are the minority, and that the billion or so Muslims are moderate and peaceful. I've yet to find this is the case. I've lived in a country where Muslims by law are jailed for converting or leaving the religion, and during Ramadan, moral police will patrol the streets looking for Muslims who are eating. In most Muslim countries, the law states that if you marry a Muslim, you must convert to one, and this is often backed by law and jail terms. People that claim to be moderate Muslims hold views that are nearly polar opposites to those held by their Muslim national compatriots, and I believe this is because the moderate Muslims have been converted to accept the views outside of Islamic teachings, but simply do not want to acknowledge it. I normally try to explain the darker side of psychology or the mind of someone mentally ill. This stems from issues like we need to stop telling people to get over it when it comes to things like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, bipolar, etc. Which, I totally agree with. No one should have to live with that sort of thing. But I also feel like people forget there is a nasty, less safe side to this. Bizarre sexual urges, violent urges, drug habits, theft, etc. People confuse this with that I wave off this kind of behavior when I'm only suggesting that those people need help too. A lot this blew up in my face when I wrote a paper in a forensic psychology class about sexual predators and how there's more to those individuals than they're fricked up and should be killed. That exposing them to the public with the intent of here he she is. Guys, let's get them does not help at all, and that I'm completely against that sort of thing. I believe many problems the world has will be solved if a lot of our population died. I don't think we should kill people, but I believe we should have regulation on population and people having so many children, especially people with genetic diseases. It's cruel to their children. Modern medicine has allowed so many weak and unproductive people to live. I guess I'm a Darwinist. I've got a genetic disease, and if I ever want to have kids, which I don't think will happen, but what do I know, I'm a teenager, I'm just gonna adopt. It takes care of two problems at once. Doctor-assisted suicide should be legal and readily available for anyone over 75 years old regardless of whether they are terminally ill or not. There is no giant problem with the school system. Teachers work hard and care about their work. Generally, parents suck. Parents are starting to suck more and more. Children are literally left to their own devices because parents can't be bothered. Teachers never were the problem. The problem is when schools require teachers to teach to the test. I'm a pretty liberal dude, but I feel like George W. Bush was a good person. I feel like he was misguided and his policy was awful, but I feel like he was a decent human being. I agree with you. There was an episode of Ellen where his daughter called him unexpectedly and he seemed like a genuinely good father and human being. Politics and stupidity aside, he's still a man. That the men's rights and feminist groups want the same thing, or at least claim to, and if they could drop all of their rhetoric and just openly talk with each other, a lot more could be accomplished. In all honesty, and knowing full well how many people on this site feel about it, I think Comcast is great. I have a nice, stable internet connection that is fast and cheap. I'm serious, I have never had a reason to dislike them. This is the only controversial opinion here. Colleges should back off from affirmative action. The majority of my high school classmates who got accepted into Ivy Leagues were Hispanic and black, and they were chosen over the white Asians who had much higher test scores, GPAs, and class ranks. They say they got in because of their hard work, but let's face it, they got in because of the color of their skin. I never wanted to be a handicapped Native American lesbian more than when I was writing my college tuition checks. People who make their sexuality or gender dysmorphia issues their identity are attention seekers, or have a really distorted view that they should be obnoxious about sex. It doesn't have to be within the first 5 things I know about you. I don't want to think about who you have sex with or what genitals you have or wish you had. In a time where women are finally being accepted as on par with men, and a lot of these people are feminists to some degree, does gender really matter? If you want to be androgynous, cool. I don't have to hear about your pride of it. You're still just a person. Just be that. There are such more productive things to spend brain power on than the topic of sex. Religion should have no place in any type of government, meaning no elected official should be able to state their religion to the public, or use it in any way, shape or form to persuade people to vote for them. Dang, that would change things. It's okay to expect fat people to pay extra on a plane or bus, but not people with loud kids. I feel like both scenarios are people who are encroaching on the comfort of others via their bad decisions, therefore they should both pay extra, not just the fat person. I think democracy is overrated. Some people have stupid ideas and should be prevented from poisoning the impressionable with those ideas. Racists and biblical literalists come to mind. That said, there is no such thing as an uncorruptible monarchy or dictatorship, so we're fricked. It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others that have been tried. Winston Churchill. I hate those ads around election time when they say that everybody should vote. Voting is a big responsibility and not a lot of people deserve the right to vote, in my opinion. I hate the people who vote whoever other people tell them to vote for, or vote for whoever is most popular. There are 2 kinds of people. The first kind really does their homework, studies all the policy measures, and carefully decides on how to vote. Many hours are put into their research and they might take it lightly. And then there are the people who vote for the guy their parents tell them to vote for, or the guy who you feel like we could just have a beer together. He's such a cool down-to-earth guy, without ever looking into their political views. And then the second person's vote completely cancels the first person's. In my opinion, voting should only be allowed after the voter writes and sends in an essay describing why they feel they should have the right to vote. And they have to write a new one for every upcoming election. They don't need to disclose who or what they will vote for. They just need to explain why they should be allowed to have their say. This will weed out all the people who don't deserve the right to vote. The essay doesn't even need to be good, as long as they are willing to put in the effort of actually writing one. That will prove that they care enough and are worthy of having a say. I believe priests should be able to marry. There is no reason for priests to live out their lives without companionship. How lonely. Plus many of these men that provide marriage and family counseling to many of their congregations. They should have some experience. They can still devote their lives to God, church and their family, even if that includes children, a spouse, etc. Deacons can marry and have kids. If their wife dies, then they can become a priest. I've had a priest that had several children. I'm a teacher working in a public school. The community and most of the staff are very religious. I think religion is a bunch of bulls. Sure, that opinion isn't controversial at all here on Reddit, but in real life it makes for some very tense conversations that I carefully avoid. If you are unable or unwilling to properly parent and provide for your children, you shouldn't have them. And definitely stop at 1 if it becomes apparent that 1 is too many for you. And abortion should be both legal and the woman's choice if when it happens. Yes, woman's choice. I decided I wanted to frick without risk of unwanted children and took steps to make it happen. Other men could do the same. I don't know that I could have ever asked a girl to consider aborting a child, but I can't think of a good reason why my opinion should apply to everyone else. I also believe that having a child to save your marriage is the dumbest freaking thing I have ever heard. Eugenics is simply man helping nature fulfill the survival of the fittest. I'm not talking about arbitrary eye color or tall blonde humans are superior, but pathologically stupid people. Genetic diseases, diseases and malformation are not well adapted for modern life and wouldn't live on if we weren't compassionate towards them. It's a horrible thing to even say, but there it is. I think we should abolish political parties, and potential candidates should have to take a survey for their views, and that's posted on an unbiased, as least bias as possible, website for everyone to read. What's Jack Johnson's views on gay marriage? He's for it, but John Jackson's against it. Says so here. This way we can have an accurate, from the horse's mouth, idea of where each politician stands, and they are free to update the survey once a week, because people's views can and do change as more information is available. I live in the US, and I believe that voter registration tests should be mandatory. If you are expecting to influence this country's politics, a solid grasp of the English language would be nice. Mandatory chemically reversible sterilization at puberty until an aptitude test for emotional stability, problem solving, performance under stress and intelligence has been passed. This would reduce the population and raise overall IQ within a few generations, and would restrict the strain on welfare and public handouts without being unnecessarily cruel. Theoretically there would be no child abuse, either. Edit. I'm not talking about perfect emotional control at all time, super high IQ, and the ability to build a rocket out of gummy worms and dreams. If I had to put it into numbers, I would say that an IQ as low as 2 standard deviations down would be fine. Occasional frustrated yelps are cool, and the ability to wrestle open a juicer box with a paperclip and dump it into a sippy cup. A truly unfortunate amount of kids are getting beaten or screamed at for pee themselves at heinously young ages, simply because their parents don't have the emotional finesse to realize they shouldn't be doing that. Think less license to kill and more like a license to drive a car. I think transgenders should use the bathroom and locker room that matches their physical sex. Identify as a lady but still have a penis. Men's room. My main counter-argument to this would be simply the opposite scenario. A person who identifies as a man but still has a vagina walks into a woman's bathroom, provided they have transitioned rather well. This looks like a man walking into a woman's bathroom. Most people would find this rather uncomfortable. Just throwing that out there. If we are talking about Reddit controversial, then it would be that I don't like Neon Genesis Evangelion. If it was just normally controversial, I think, as an American, gun laws need to be way more strict. Here on Reddit, not all feminists are evil and hate men. Seriously, show any sign of not hating feminism and people lose their crap like you just shat on their ancestors' graves. 9/11 doesn't deserve a day. Yes, it was a horrible event, but we don't need a day to mourn when worse things have happened. We don't have a day for the Holocaust, or days for wars. Not that we should either, emo. I'm a socialist and I'm willing to call myself a socialist, though my ideas are not particularly controversial. Many people are misinformed about what socialism is and how it can be a really good thing for a country like America. It still allows some free market enterprise, but the necessities are covered. It's actually better for the economy. But the second I say that I'm a socialist, people think it's a dirty word or something. I never understood the concept of divorce settlements and getting half of what the other person worked for. If you stayed home you didn't take advantage of your potential, so we have to assume you didn't have any to start with. Why should you get paid more in a settlement than back pay for nanny and cleaning services? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.